Imagine for a moment that everything you were ever told about one of the most iconic events in human history, the Crucifixion, might not be the complete story. Imagine that beneath the surface of faith, symbolism, and centuries of doctrine lies a truth so profound, so unsettling that it has been hidden in plain sight. What if the Crucifixion was never about pain and punishment, but about power, transformation, and the eternal struggle between light and shadow within the human soul? Today, we are going to journey far beyond the boundaries of traditional belief. We will step into the forbidden corridors of history, mysticism, and ancient symbolism to uncover the dark secret behind the Crucifixion. And the last revelation, the one we'll reach by the end, is perhaps the most powerful of all, because it might completely change the way you understand not only the story of Christ, but the story of humanity itself. Before we begin, if you are drawn to the hidden truths of the universe, if you believe that wisdom transcends dogma and that the divine speaks in symbols, then make sure to subscribe to this channel, leave your like, and share this video with others who seek the deeper mysteries of existence, because what we are about to reveal could shift your perception forever. Now, let us begin. The Crucifixion has long been portrayed as the ultimate act of suffering and sacrifice, the moment when the Son of God bore the weight of humanity's sins. Yet, to the ancient initiates, to the mystics of Alexandria, to the followers of the Hermetic tradition and the Gnostics who read beyond the literal, this story held a far deeper meaning. They believed it was never about the death of one man, but the symbolic death of ignorance itself. To them, the cross was not merely a tool of torture, it was a key, a cosmic symbol representing the intersection of the material and the spiritual, the temporal and the eternal. In the esoteric understanding, the horizontal beam of the cross represents the physical plane, the finite world of form, limitation, and mortality. The vertical beam represents the divine axis, the infinite line of spirit connecting humanity to the source of all creation. And at their intersection lies the crucified one, the human soul caught between matter and divinity, suffering not for sin, but for separation. This idea, whispered among the early mystics, was both beautiful and dangerous, because it suggested that the true resurrection was not a historical event, but a process within every human being, the awakening of the Christ consciousness, the realization of the divine nature that sleeps within. And this perhaps was the first secret that was deliberately obscured by the rising orthodoxy, the idea that divinity is not exclusive, but universal, that each of us carries within the same spark that was symbolized in the man nailed to the cross. But why would such a truth be hidden? Why would an idea of inner divinity be replaced by a doctrine of guilt, suffering, and salvation only through external faith? To answer this, we must look to the centuries following the Crucifixion, when spiritual knowledge was being translated into control. The early church, in its quest for unity and authority, began to transform living symbols into dogmas and personal awakening into institutional obedience. The mystics who spoke of the divine within were silenced, their writings destroyed or branded heresy. Think of the Gnostics, the Essenes, the Hermetic philosophers, those who believed that the cross symbolized not death, but the alchemical crucible in which the lower self is dissolved to reveal the divine gold within. They taught that the crucifixion was a metaphor for initiation, the descent into the depths of the soul, the death of the ego, and the rebirth of spirit. Yet their message was buried under centuries of literalism until only fragments of their wisdom remained. Have you ever wondered why the story of the crucifixion evokes such deep emotion, sorrow, awe, reverence, even for those outside the Christian faith? Perhaps because at its core it speaks to something archetypal within us. Every human soul experiences its own crucifixion, the moment when the illusions of the world collapse, when our attachments are stripped away, when we are forced to confront the shadow within. And through that inner death, something divine awakens, something eternal. Carl Jung once wrote that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. This psychological insight mirrors the same principle hidden in the cross, that only through the darkness of suffering can we access the light of transcendence. The crucifixion, in this sense, is not a tragedy, but a map, a sacred diagram of spiritual transformation encoded in myth. Yet there is another layer, darker still, one that few dare to confront. For if the cross symbolizes both oppression and awakening, then it also reveals the eternal conflict between those who seek to awaken humanity and those who seek to keep it asleep. Some scholars of the occult suggest that the physical crucifixion was not only a symbol of sacrifice, but also an ancient ritual act, a public demonstration of power by the earthly forces that feared spiritual liberation, to bind spirit to matter, to silence those who spoke of inner divinity. But here is the paradox. What was meant to silence became the very symbol of awakening. The cross, intended as an instrument of control, became the greatest emblem of transcendence. The dark secret is that even in the act of suppression, the divine truth could not be destroyed. It was encoded, hidden, and passed down through symbols, waiting for those with eyes to see and hearts to understand. So ask yourself, what if the crucifixion was not the end of a story but the beginning of one? What if the resurrection was not a miracle of flesh, but a revelation of consciousness? In the next part, we will delve deeper into how ancient mystery schools, Hermetic philosophers, and early Gnostics interpreted the crucifixion as a hidden initiatory rite, and how this understanding was systematically erased from history. Imagine walking through the ancient streets of Alexandria, the crossroads of wisdom, where scrolls from Egypt, Greece, and the East filled vast libraries with secrets of the cosmos. In those candlelit chambers, philosophers whispered that the story of the crucifixion was not merely a record of one man's death, but an allegory written in the universal language of the mysteries, a code that spoke of the soul's transformation from darkness into light. In the teachings of the ancient mystery schools, from Egypt to Eleusis, from the Hermetic temples of Thoth to the initiations of Isis, the concept of death and rebirth was central. Every initiate had to symbolically die before being spiritually reborn. This was not a physical death, but the death of ignorance, of illusion, of the false self that clings to matter. And those who passed through this sacred process emerged transformed, awakened to the divine spark within them. When you look at the crucifixion through this ancient lens, something remarkable emerges. The cross itself becomes the symbol of initiation, and the 3 days of darkness before resurrection mirror the 3 stages of alchemical transformation: nigredo, the blackening, the dissolution of the ego; albedo, the whitening, purification through understanding; and rubedo, the reddening, the illumination of spirit. To the alchemist, this was not just a chemical process, but the journey of the soul itself. The early Gnostic texts, such as those found at Nag Hammadi, reveal a Christ who speaks not of sin and punishment, but of knowledge, gnosis, as the path to salvation. In the Gospel of Thomas, he says, "Whoever drinks from my mouth will become as I am, and I shall become that person." This is not a statement of separation, but of unity. The divine is not external, but mirrored within. However, this understanding was dangerous. It threatened the very foundation of institutional religion, because if every soul carries the spark of the divine, if salvation comes through awakening and not obedience, then no hierarchy can claim ownership over God. The early church understood the power of this revelation and sought to control it. What was once an inner path became an outer system. The living mystery became a dogma written in stone. The Gnostics spoke of 2 forces at war: the archons, rulers of illusion who sought to keep humanity bound to ignorance, and the pneumatics, souls who remembered their divine origin. To them, the crucifixion symbolized this very struggle, the cosmic conflict between the forces that liberate consciousness and those that enslave it. The Christ figure represented the awakened soul, crucified by the world of illusion, yet rising beyond it through gnosis. Even the symbol of the crown of thorns holds hidden meaning. Thorns represent the pain of material existence, the suffering that surrounds the human mind. The crown, placed upon the head, becomes the symbol of enlightenment through suffering, the awakening of the mind to divine consciousness. What was meant as mockery in the physical narrative becomes a profound symbol in the spiritual one. Consider also the mysterious cry from the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" To the literal mind, this is despair, but to the initiate, it is the final trial, the moment when the soul confronts absolute separation from the divine before awakening to unity. In that abyss of darkness, the last illusion dies, the illusion that God is something outside of oneself. And in that moment, resurrection begins. Hermetic philosophy, especially as expressed in the Corpus Hermeticum, teaches that the divine mind, or nous, is the source of all creation, and that man, being made in its image, possesses within him the capacity to ascend back to that source through knowledge and inner purification. When we apply this to the crucifixion, we see that the cross is not a defeat, but a gateway, a portal through which the soul transcends form and returns to its divine origin. This is why mystics across centuries, from Meister Eckhart to Jacob Boehme, echoed the same truth, that Christ must be crucified and resurrected within each of us. Boehme wrote that Christ's cross is the gate to the kingdom of light. He was not speaking of a wooden cross on a hill, but of the inner experience of transformation, the crucifixion of ego and the awakening of spirit. But here lies the dark secret, one that institutions feared above all. If every human being possesses the capacity for resurrection, if divinity resides within, then no external authority holds true power. The crucifixion, then, becomes not a symbol of submission, but of liberation. It reveals that the same light which shone in the Christ consciousness can ignite in every soul brave enough to face its own darkness. Ask yourself, have you ever felt that life itself seems to crucify you? That pain, loss, and disappointment nail you to a cross of your own making? What if those moments are not punishments, but invitations, sacred initiations into deeper awareness? Every suffering hides within it the seed of awakening. Every fall carries the possibility of resurrection. In the alchemical tradition, it is said that the gold is born in the fire, and so too is the awakened soul forged in the crucible of human experience. The darkness of the crucifixion is the darkness before dawn, the moment when all seems lost, just before light breaks through. But the story does not end here. There is still a deeper layer, one that takes us beyond symbolism and into the realm of cosmic truth. For hidden within the crucifixion lies a mystery that reaches far beyond one time, one place, or one person. It is a mystery of energy, vibration, and divine alignment, a secret that connects the geometry of the cross to the very structure of the universe itself. And in the next part, we will explore how the cross, the crucifixion, and the resurrection align with ancient cosmology, sacred geometry, and the energetic laws that govern creation, revealing that what happened on Calvary was not only a spiritual event, but a cosmic one. Ponder this. Could the crucifixion have been more than an earthly event? What if it was also a cosmic alignment, a reflection of divine order manifesting in the physical realm? Across ancient traditions, moments of great transformation on earth were believed to mirror movements of the heavens, as above, so below. The crucifixion, seen through the lens of Hermetic wisdom, was not simply the end of a prophet's life, but the enactment of a cosmic mystery, the alignment of spirit and matter at a specific frequency of divine consciousness. Throughout the ancient world, the cross existed long before Christianity. It appeared in Egyptian hieroglyphs as the Ankh, the key of life, in Babylon as the mark of Tammuz, in Hindu temples as the symbol of the four directions and the unity of the center. The cross was the universal glyph of creation, the point where heaven and earth converge. The horizontal beam represented the flow of energy across space and time, while the vertical axis signified the descent of spirit into matter. Where they met, at the heart, was the pulse of the divine, the human soul. When the figure of Christ was placed upon that cross, the ancients believed that a profound energetic act occurred. The body became the living axis mundi, the bridge between worlds. The blood spilled on the earth symbolized the descent of divine light into the densest realm of existence, sanctifying matter itself. The crucifixion thus became not a defeat, but the moment when spirit fully embraced the material world to redeem it from within. In the Hermetic view, every act in the physical realm carries a resonance in the unseen. The alignment of the cross and the position of the body upon it formed a sacred geometry, a pattern of energy that radiated through the ether. Mystics spoke of this as the vibration of Christ consciousness entering the planetary field. This is why, after the crucifixion, ancient mystics claimed to feel an energetic shift in the world, as though the very frequency of human consciousness had been recalibrated. Modern scholars like Rudolf Steiner and esoteric thinkers such as Manly P. Hall have echoed this idea. Steiner described the crucifixion as the mystery of Golgotha, a cosmic event that transformed not only humanity's destiny, but the spiritual fabric of the earth itself. Hall wrote that the cross is the supreme alchemical symbol, representing the fixation of spirit within matter. In both views, the crucifixion marks a turning point in the evolution of consciousness, when divine awareness became permanently woven into human experience. Look deeper into the geometry of the cross itself. Its proportions are not accidental. The vertical and horizontal lines create the ratio known as the golden section, the same divine proportion found in the spirals of galaxies, the petals of flowers, and the structure of the human body. This ratio, F/phi, is the mathematical fingerprint of creation. The cross, therefore, embodies the universal pattern that sustains life. When the Christ figure is placed at its center, it represents harmony restored, the rebalancing of cosmic order through the union of opposites. But what of the darkness that followed the crucifixion, the 3 hours when the sun was said to have been obscured? Ancient astronomers and mystics interpreted this as more than coincidence. They saw it as a celestial sign, the earth itself mourning, the cosmos participating in the sacred drama. Some esoteric traditions claim that during this time, an actual shift occurred within the Earth's magnetic and spiritual fields, marking the transition from one age to another, from the age of Aries, the ram of sacrifice, to the age of Pisces, the fish of compassion. This shift is reflected in the symbols of Christianity itself. The fish, the ichthys, became the secret emblem of early Christians, not merely because of its connection to the apostles, but because it represented the new astrological era, an age of spiritual awakening and inner transformation. The crucifixion, then, was the celestial doorway through which humanity entered a new cycle of consciousness. Every great teacher before Christ spoke of this same transformation: Osiris dismembered and reborn, Dionysus torn apart and resurrected, Mithras slain and risen. The pattern repeats across ages because it is a law of nature and spirit. Death is the prelude to rebirth, destruction the precondition for renewal. The crucifixion is the latest expression of this eternal truth, written not only in Scripture, but in the stars themselves. Yet beneath the divine geometry and cosmic order, there remains the shadow, the dark current that sought to distort this revelation. For if the crucifixion truly symbolized the merging of heaven and earth, it also exposed the forces that feed on division, ignorance, and fear. The act that was meant to unite became the very symbol used to separate. The message of inner divinity was replaced with dependence on external authority. The living mystery was buried beneath ritual and creed. This distortion was no accident. The Gnostics spoke of the archons, the rulers of the lower world, who sought to keep mankind blind to its true nature. They thrive on humanity's forgetfulness, on its willingness to worship the symbol while ignoring the essence. To the Gnostics, the crucifixion was the moment when the forces of light and darkness clashed openly, the attempt of the archons to extinguish the light of Gnosis and the victory of that light through resurrection. And here we encounter the paradox again. The very act of suppression gave rise to awakening. The energy released through the crucifixion, whether seen as symbolic or cosmic, became the seed of an unstoppable transformation. From that moment onward, humanity could never again fully forget its divine origin. The cross became an unconscious reminder of the inner Christ, the spark within each being waiting to be resurrected. Ask yourself, if the crucifixion truly mirrors a cosmic law, then what part of that law lives within you? What inner energies are nailed to your own cross of limitation, waiting to be liberated through awareness? Could your moments of deepest pain actually be the points of greatest alignment, when your soul is closest to transformation? The cross, then, is not only an external symbol of faith, it is the blueprint of consciousness itself. It calls to each soul, awaken, rise, remember. But there is still one final truth, the most powerful of all, hidden in the mystery of resurrection itself. What happened after the crucifixion was not simply a return to life, but the revelation of what life truly is. The resurrection, misunderstood as a miracle of the body, is in truth the unveiling of an eternal principle, that consciousness cannot die. In the final part, we will uncover the ultimate secret, the revelation that the resurrection was not the restoration of one man's life, but the awakening of divine life in all humanity. We will explore what this means for our world today, and how the same light that rose beyond the tomb can rise within you. Imagine standing at the threshold of dawn, the air heavy with silence, the tomb still sealed in shadow. For 3 days, the world had held its breath. The sun had vanished, faith had faltered, and all that was once certain had turned to dust. Yet from that very darkness, something eternal stirred. Not the mere return of life to a body, but the awakening of consciousness itself. This is the moment where the hidden mystery reveals its final truth. The resurrection was not an event to be remembered, but a state to be realized. For centuries, humanity has been taught to look outward for salvation, to see the resurrection as proof of divine power bestowed upon one being alone. But the esoteric wisdom passed down through the ages tells another story, that the resurrection is the inner awakening of the soul, the lifting of the veil of illusion, the remembrance of our immortal nature. The Christ did not rise for himself. He rose as a symbol of what every human spirit is destined to become. The mystics of every age have spoken of this same awakening. In the Gnostic texts, Christ says, "I am the light that is over all things. Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift up the stone, and you will find me there." These words echo through time, reminding us that the divine presence is not confined to heaven or temple, but permeates every atom of existence. To awaken to this truth is to resurrect, to see with new eyes that there is no separation between the human and the divine. Throughout the ages, seekers have sought this same transformation. The yogi in meditation, the alchemist in his laboratory, the monk in silent prayer. All strive toward one goal, union with the eternal. In this union, death loses its meaning, and fear dissolves into understanding. The crucifixion then represents the death of ignorance, while the resurrection signifies the victory of consciousness. But here lies the dark secret, the one hidden behind centuries of interpretation. The resurrection was never meant to create followers. It was meant to awaken creators. Each of us carries within the same divine pattern, the same cross of transformation, the same potential to rise. The tragedy of history is that humanity was taught to worship the symbol instead of embodying the truth it represents. When Christ rose, according to the mystics, it was not the return of flesh, but the transfiguration of energy. His form became radiant, transcending the density of matter. To the esoteric philosophers, this was the ultimate alchemical act, the transformation of lead into gold, the lower into the higher, the finite into the infinite. The resurrection was the final initiation, demonstrating the eternal law that consciousness creates reality. Hermetic philosophy teaches that all is mind. Everything that exists, from the stars in the heavens to the thoughts within your mind, is a manifestation of the universal consciousness. The resurrection, viewed through this principle, becomes the ultimate revelation of that law. When the Christ consciousness realized its unity with the all, even death itself lost its hold. Matter yielded to spirit, illusion dissolved into truth. This understanding is echoed by the mystic poet Rumi, who wrote, "Don't grieve. Anything you lose comes round in another form." He was not speaking merely of comfort, but of the eternal dance of energy and form. The same law expressed in the resurrection. Nothing truly dies. It only changes its vibration. The crucifixion and resurrection together reveal this universal rhythm: descent and ascent, darkness and light, crucifixion and rebirth. Ask yourself, how many times have you been buried under your own fears, doubts, or failures? How many times have you believed it was the end, only to rise stronger, wiser, more awake? Every moment of despair hides within it a resurrection waiting to unfold. The tomb is not a place of death. It is the womb of transformation. The stone that seals it is the illusion of separation, and the light that breaks through is the awakening of divine awareness. The true resurrection, therefore, is not something that happened 2,000 years ago. It happens every moment a human soul remembers its own divinity. When you forgive where others hate, when you love despite the pain, when you rise after being broken, you are living the mystery of resurrection. The Christ consciousness is not a figure to worship, but a frequency to embody. This is why throughout history, the greatest spiritual teachers have said the same thing in different words. The kingdom of God is within you. It is not found in temples or scriptures, but in the silent knowing of the heart. The cross stands not on a hill, but within your own being. And every challenge you face is another nail, another chance to release, to transcend, to awaken. The dark secret behind the crucifixion is that it was never a story of death. It was a story of awakening, disguised in the language of suffering, so that only those with inner vision would see. Those who sought power took the symbol of liberation and turned it into a tool of control, teaching humanity to fear rather than to awaken. But the truth cannot be buried forever. The light always finds its way through the cracks. In our modern age, as consciousness expands and old systems begin to crumble, this truth is re-emerging. The resurrection is happening again, not to one man, but to all of humanity. Every awakened heart adds to the rising vibration of the planet. Every act of love resurrects the world a little more. The cross becomes the compass of transformation, its vertical line pointing to spirit, its horizontal line extending to all humanity. At their center lies the heart, the true resurrection point, the sacred balance of heaven and earth within you. The mystics say that when the heart opens fully, the veil of separation falls. The resurrected soul no longer sees enemies, divisions, or death, only the play of divine consciousness unfolding through infinite forms. This is the Christ state, the realization that all life is one, that every crucifixion carries within it the seed of resurrection, and that the ultimate redemption of humanity will come not through belief, but through awakening. So as you listen now, ask yourself, what part of you is still nailed to the cross of fear? What illusion keeps your light hidden? The moment you recognize it, the resurrection begins. The stone rolls away, not by divine intervention, but by your own awakening. The darkness of the tomb transforms into the light of realization, and from that light, a new world begins. The story of the crucifixion ends not in death, but in rebirth, not in sorrow, but in revelation. Its secret was never meant to be hidden forever, only to be rediscovered by those ready to see. The same divine power that lifted the Christ consciousness beyond death is the same force that breathes through you now. It whispers through your heartbeat, shines through your eyes, and waits patiently for you to remember. Because in the end, the cross was never a symbol of suffering. It was the map home. The resurrection was never an ending. It was the beginning of eternal life realized. And the dark secret behind the crucifixion is that you are not merely a witness to it. You are part of it. The mystery lives within you, waiting, always, to rise. Thanks for looking. Imagine for a moment that the greatest story ever told on the life of Jesus hides a secret chapter that was never written in the official scriptures. Think about it. The Bible speaks of Jesus as a young boy in the temple, confounding the scholars with his wisdom. And then suddenly, the narrative jumps to his 30th year, when he appears again by the River Jordan to begin his mission. 18 years of his life, gone, erased, or perhaps intentionally veiled in mystery. Where was he during those lost years? What did he learn? And why does the silence of history echo so loudly across those missing chapters? Today, we are going to explore one of the most profound and controversial enigmas in spiritual history, the lost years of Jesus, and the possibility that he journeyed to the mystical lands of the East, India, Nepal, Tibet, and beyond. Stay with me, because in this video we'll travel through ancient texts, hidden traditions, and forgotten manuscripts that suggest Jesus may have walked among monks, yogis, and sages, learning the timeless wisdom of the East that would later illuminate his teachings in the West. And I promise you this, the final revelation in this video will be the most powerful of all, one that could completely change the way you see history, spirituality, and the divine connection that binds all paths together. Before we continue, if you're fascinated by the mysteries of history, the esoteric traditions, and the deeper truths that lie beneath the surface of religion, take a moment to subscribe to this channel, leave a like, and share this video with those who seek the light of hidden knowledge. Because what you are about to discover might transform your understanding of life, faith, and the infinite journey of the soul. Let us begin our journey. When Jesus was 12, the Gospel of Luke tells us he astonished the elders in the Temple of Jerusalem with his understanding. And then, silence. For nearly 2 decades, no record exists. Scholars have debated this gap for centuries, but ancient traditions from the East whisper a different story. A story of a young seeker who traveled beyond the borders of Judea, guided by destiny toward lands of deeper enlightenment. According to the life of Saint Isa, a manuscript said to have been discovered in the 19th century by the Russian traveler Nicholas Notovich at the Hemis monastery in Ladakh. Jesus, known there as Isa, spent years among the wise men of India. Notovich's account describes a figure who studied the Vedas, learned the language of the ancient scriptures, and spoke against the rigid caste system, teaching that all souls are equal before the eternal spirit. He was loved by the humble, yet challenged by the priests who feared the power of his truth. Skeptics have called Notovich's discovery a fabrication, yet echoes of his story appear in other traditions. In Kashmir, ancient records and oral legends tell of a prophet named Yusasaf, whose teachings mirrored those of Jesus: compassion, forgiveness, unity, and the divine spark within every being. Some even claim that a tomb in Srinagar, the Rosabal shrine, bears the final resting place of this mysterious teacher. Could it be possible that after his resurrection, Jesus returned to the East, completing a circle that began in his youth? This possibility invites us to look beyond dogma and into the greater mystery of divine purpose. If Jesus truly journeyed to the East, it would mean that his message was not confined to one culture, one faith, or one geography. It would mean that his wisdom was universal, a bridge between worlds, between meditation and prayer, between the silence of the Himalayas and the Psalms of Jerusalem. Think about this. The teachings of love, compassion, inner stillness, and the kingdom within, all central to Christ's message, mirror the essence of Buddhist and Hindu philosophies that had already flourished for centuries. Could his time in the East have awakened in him the realization of unity, of divine oneness? Did he encounter the great masters of the Himalayas, learning from their silence the art of inner communion with God? And what if this connection was never meant to be hidden, but rather revealed when humanity was ready to understand that truth is not the property of one faith alone, but the eternal light shared by all seekers? The mystics of every age have hinted at this same unity. Paramahansa Yogananda, in his celebrated work, The Second Coming of Christ, wrote that the teachings of Jesus and Krishna are not different. They are the same divine song expressed in different tongues. The Christ consciousness, he said, is the same eternal awareness that shines through all enlightened beings. So perhaps the silence of those lost years is not an absence, but a sacred veil, a divine invitation to seek beyond the written word and rediscover the hidden harmony of East and West, spirit and matter, human and divine. But we have only begun to peel back the first layer of this mystery. In the next part, we'll uncover the ancient connections between the Essenes, the mystical brotherhood believed to have raised Jesus, and the spiritual orders of the East, whose practices of meditation, healing, and ascetic discipline mirror those found in the deserts of Qumran and the monasteries of India. What if the roots of his spiritual awakening were planted long before his travels began? Stay with me. The revelations ahead might completely transform how you understand the hidden journey of Jesus. When we seek the truth about the hidden years of Jesus, we begin to realize that silence often conceals revelation. There are those who claim that even before he set foot in India or Tibet, the foundations of his spiritual training were already being laid in his homeland, among a mysterious brotherhood known as the Essenes. The Essenes were a secretive Jewish sect who lived apart from the rest of society, dedicating their lives to purity, study, and the pursuit of divine wisdom. They believed that light and darkness war within every human soul, and that through discipline, meditation, and compassion, one could awaken the divine spark within. Sound familiar? Their principles echoed those later taught by Jesus himself. Love your neighbor, forgive your enemies, and seek the kingdom of God within. Imagine young Jesus, growing up in the hills of Galilee, drawn to these quiet mystics who lived by the shores of the Dead Sea, near what we now call Qumran. Imagine him learning their healing arts, their practices of fasting, their rituals of purification through water, baptism. Centuries later, fragments of their sacred writings, the Dead Sea Scrolls, would emerge from caves, revealing a wisdom that resonated with the very words spoken by Christ. Could it be that Jesus was nurtured by this hidden community, preparing him for a mission that would bridge East and West, matter and spirit? The similarities are too striking to ignore. The Essenes meditated daily, awaited a teacher of righteousness, and taught the oneness of all life. They spoke of an inner light, the light of God, that dwells in every person, These were not ideas foreign to the East. In India, the ancient Upanishads declared, "The self is the light of all lights." In Buddhism, the inner awakening is called Bodhi, enlightenment. Across thousands of miles, across languages and cultures, the same truth was whispered in different words, that the divine is not distant, but alive within us. Could Jesus, as a young seeker, hungry for truth, have felt that his destiny was not bound to one land alone? The ancient world was not as isolated as we imagine. Trade routes stretched from the Mediterranean to India, carrying not only silk and spices, but also ideas, philosophies, and spiritual teachings. Travelers, merchants, and monks moved along these routes, and perhaps so did the young Jesus, following the same path of seekers before him, drawn by an inner call that transcended geography. Historical accounts, though often dismissed by orthodox scholars, suggest a pattern. In India's ancient regions of Orissa and Kashmir, local traditions tell of a Western sage who spoke of the one God, of compassion, and of the power of prayer from the heart. Buddhist monks in Nepal and Tibet preserved stories of a saintly figure named Issa, who came from the West to study and teach the Dharma. In one version, Issa condemned the caste system, healed the sick with his touch, and preached that all men and women are children of the same Father. What makes these accounts compelling is not merely their content, but their harmony. The teachings attributed to Issa reflect the same moral and spiritual essence found in the words of Jesus as recorded in the Gospels. Could all these voices across centuries and continents be remembering the same being? Let us ask a deeper question. If Jesus did indeed study the sacred wisdom of the East, what impact did it have on his consciousness? The practice of meditation, the science of the breath, the art of stillness, these were ancient paths to union with the divine. They taught that the kingdom of heaven is not reached through ritual alone, but through inner transformation. When Jesus later said, "The kingdom of God is within you," was he echoing an insight born from those very teachings? The parallels are too profound to be coincidence. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna declares that God dwells in the heart of every being. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches that purity and awakening come from the mind. And in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus proclaims, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Each of these voices sings the same melody, the symphony of divine realization. The mystics of every era have known that truth wears many garments, but its essence is one. Jesus, traveling through lands where Buddhism and Hinduism flourished, might have seen that same essence reflected in the faces of monks and mendicants, in the chants that rose through temple smoke, in the silent gaze of those who had renounced the world to find God within. Yet if this was part of his journey, why was it hidden? Why do our scriptures remain silent? Perhaps the silence was protection, for knowledge too vast, too radical for its time. To say that God dwells equally in all might have threatened not only the authorities of Judea, but the foundations of empire and tradition. To reveal that enlightenment was accessible to all souls, beyond boundaries and institutions, was to shake the world itself. Many modern thinkers, from Swami Abhedananda of the Ramakrishna order to the scholar Holger Kirsten, author of Jesus Lived in India, have argued that the missing years of Jesus are not a void, but a journey deliberately veiled by history. Their works invite us to imagine a Christ whose light was shaped by both East and West, whose compassion was deepened by the wisdom of many paths. So perhaps the question is not whether Jesus went to the East, but what deeper truth this story reveals about the universality of divine wisdom. Maybe the real secret of the lost years is not where he went, but what he became, the embodiment of unity itself. And as we continue our exploration, we will go further into the heart of this enigma. In the next section, we will uncover the parallels between the words of Christ and the sacred teachings of the East, the sayings, parables, and principles that reveal a hidden thread connecting them all. And in that thread, we may find not just historical evidence, but a spiritual key, one that opens the door to a new understanding of the divine within us all. As we move deeper into this journey, the lines between history and mystery begin to blur. We start to realize that the story of Jesus is not only about one man, but about the eternal search for truth that lives within every human heart. Whether in Nazareth or Nepal, the same flame of divine wisdom burns, the same yearning to understand the source, from which all life flows. Let us now explore the echoes, the astonishing parallels between the teachings of Jesus and the sacred wisdom of the East. For centuries, scholars and mystics alike have noticed that the words of the Christ often mirror the philosophies of India and Tibet, suggesting not imitation, but a shared revelation, the recognition of a single divine truth expressed through different voices. Consider the concept of inner transformation. In the East, the Buddha taught that liberation comes from awakening, from seeing beyond illusion and realizing the true nature of the self. In the West, Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." Both point toward an inner awakening, a realization of divine presence beyond the veil of the ego. The Buddha called it enlightenment. Jesus called it the kingdom of heaven within. Different languages, same destination. Now think about love, the radiant, boundless love that transcends human distinctions. The Bhagavad Gita teaches, "He who sees the same Lord dwelling everywhere in every creature truly sees." Jesus echoed this in his call to love one's neighbor as oneself. Both teachings dissolve the illusion of separation and reveal the sacred unity of all beings. What if these similarities are not coincidences, but the reflection of a truth so universal that it transcends time and geography? Even the methods of spiritual practice carry echoes of shared insight. The Eastern mystics emphasized silence, meditation, breath, and the inner stillness where the divine reveals itself. Jesus often withdrew to solitary places to pray, not merely to speak, but to commune with God in the silence of the soul. In that quiet, perhaps he experienced what the yogis called samadhi, the union with the infinite. When he said, "I and the Father are one," could that have been the voice of a man who had experienced the same oneness that the sages of the Himalayas described for centuries? Some historians suggest that the link between these teachings might have traveled along ancient trade routes, where monks, merchants, and mystics shared ideas that would one day shape civilizations. Yet others, including spiritual masters like Paramahansa Yogananda, believed the connection was not merely cultural, but cosmic. Yogananda wrote that Jesus and Krishna are two manifestations of the same infinite consciousness, revealing the same path to God through different expressions. And indeed, if we look closely, we see the same spiritual architecture in their messages: self-realization through love, detachment from worldly illusions, and the awakening of divine consciousness within. Jesus taught through parables, the Buddha through sutras, Krishna through divine dialogue. Each spoke the language of their time, but the melody was one, the eternal song of the soul seeking reunion with its source. This idea may be challenging for some because it calls us to look beyond the walls of religion into the open sky of spirituality. But great souls have always invited us to do just that. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the transcendentalist philosopher, once wrote, "Make your own Bible. Select and collect all the words and sentences that in all the scriptures have been to you like the blast of a trumpet." Emerson understood that divine truth is not confined to one book, but scattered like stars across the heavens of human wisdom. Let us pause for a moment and reflect. If Jesus did indeed walk among the sages of India, learning the ways of meditation and compassion, then his message was never intended to create division. It was meant to reveal the unity of all paths, the oneness of the human spirit with the infinite. When he returned to his homeland, he may have carried with him not just teachings, but a vibration, a light so vast that it could not be contained by any one tradition. Some accounts even suggest that Jesus' miracles, the healings, the calming of storms, the raising of the dead, were expressions of a deep mastery over the laws of spirit and matter, much like the siddhis described in Eastern texts, the spiritual powers that arise naturally from union with the divine. If this is true, then what we call miracles were not acts of magic, but demonstrations of a consciousness fully awakened, one with the source of all creation. Could this be why those who encountered him felt an overwhelming sense of peace and presence? The Gospels tell us that even the winds and waves obeyed him. The ancient sages of the East would say, "Nature responds to one who has become one with the divine." And what of his message of forgiveness, of turning the other cheek, of loving those who hate you? These are not simply moral teachings, they are expressions of spiritual freedom. The Buddha taught, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love." Jesus lived this truth. His words were not philosophy, they were the living embodiment of the same realization that echoes through every awakened heart. The deeper we look, the more we see a universal pattern emerging, a sacred geometry of truth woven through every tradition. The silence of Jesus' lost years may not be an omission, but a signpost, pointing us to look beyond history into the timeless. Because perhaps the true mystery is not whether he studied in India or meditated in Tibet, but that he awakened to the same truth that all enlightened beings discover, that within every soul lies the reflection of God, waiting to be realized. In the final part of our journey, we will explore the most powerful revelation of all, one that ties together the mysteries of the East, the wisdom of the Essenes, and the ultimate purpose of Jesus' hidden years. What if those years were not lost, but deliberately concealed, preserved for a time when humanity would finally be ready to understand the unity behind all faiths? Stay with me, because the last revelation may transform not only how you see Jesus, but how you see yourself. What if the so-called lost years of Jesus were never lost at all, but hidden in plain sight, preserved in symbols, parables, and fragments of wisdom scattered across the ancient world? What if every silence in the scriptures was intentional, an invitation for those with ears to hear to seek the truth behind the veil? As the story unfolds, we begin to see a greater pattern. Jesus' life, his disappearance from the records, and his later ministry are not isolated events, but stages in a divine initiation, one that mirrors the path of every soul striving toward enlightenment. The East has long spoken of this process. The seeker leaves the world, journeys into solitude, learns from the masters, awakens to truth, and returns to share the light. Could it be that the young Jesus walked this very path? Imagine him crossing deserts and mountains, traveling through Persia, perhaps encountering Zoroastrian mystics who taught the battle between light and darkness. Imagine him arriving in India, learning the sacred science of compassion, meditation, and healing from those who had studied for thousands of years. Picture him standing beneath the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas, realizing that the God he sought was not distant, but living within. This journey was not only geographical, it was the journey of awakening itself. When he returned to Judea, his words carried a power that transcended boundaries. "The kingdom of heaven is within you," he said, a phrase that mirrors the Vedantic declaration, "Thou art that." The message is the same. The divine is not apart from you. It is your very essence. The teachings he brought home were the distilled essence of both worlds, the compassion of the East united with the prophetic fire of the West. Perhaps this is why his message felt so revolutionary. The priests expected law and ritual. He spoke of spirit and love. The empire expected obedience. He spoke of freedom through truth. He taught that every soul, regardless of birth or status, carries the same divine light, an idea that threatened every structure built upon power and separation. In that sense, Jesus did not merely teach religion, he embodied transformation. Now think about this. What if the crucifixion, the resurrection, and the ascension were not just historical events, but also spiritual symbols, stages of consciousness describing the death of the ego, the rebirth of divine awareness, and the final union with God? The mystics of the East describe the same journey, the dissolution of self into the infinite, where the drop becomes the ocean. Could it be that Jesus' life was the ultimate parable, not of suffering but of awakening? Great spiritual teachers across centuries have echoed this understanding. Lama Govinda, in The Way of the White Clouds, wrote that the enlightened ones of all ages are rays of the same sun, appearing wherever humanity is ready to receive them. Swami Vivekananda declared, "The same soul who appeared as Krishna, as Buddha, now appeared as Christ." Such words remind us that truth is not owned by any creed. It is universal, eternal, and self-evident to those who awaken to it. This realization changes everything. It means that Jesus was not a solitary exception to the human condition, but a mirror of what humanity can become. His lost years then symbolize our own forgotten divinity, the part of ourselves that has wandered far from the source, yet yearns to return. The lost years are not only about Jesus, they are about us. If he indeed absorbed the teachings of the East, then his message becomes even clearer. That enlightenment is not confined to temples or rituals, but is the natural birthright of every soul. The silence of those years becomes a sacred metaphor, reminding us that the most important parts of our journey are often unseen, the inner transformations that precede outer revelation. As we connect these threads, the Essenes and their discipline, the sages of India and their meditation, the compassion of the Buddha, the devotion of Krishna, the truth of Christ, we begin to see that they all point to one reality. The same divine consciousness breathes through them all, whispering the eternal command: awaken, remember, return. Imagine if humanity embraced this truth. There would be no east or west, no separation of faiths, only one great path leading toward the same light. Perhaps this was the ultimate secret hidden within the lost years, that Jesus' journey was meant to unite, not divide. That in the silence between scriptures, a message was waiting for the age when humanity would finally be ready to understand. And maybe that time is now. We live in an era where the wisdom of every culture is within reach. Ancient texts, mystical teachings, the voices of saints and sages preserved for those who seek. The veil is thinning. What was once hidden in monasteries and deserts is now whispered across the digital ether, waiting to awaken the same realization within each of us, that the Christ, the Buddha, the Atman, all are names for the same eternal presence dwelling in every human heart. So let us end our journey where it began, with the question of the lost years. They are not lost. They are alive in the teachings that survive, in the hearts that awaken, in the eternal bridge between East and West. Jesus' path was not about departure, but return. Return to the one, to the light, to the truth that we are and have always been divine. And perhaps the final revelation, the one I promised at the beginning, is this: the story of Jesus is the story of the human soul. We are all travelers between worlds, seekers of light across lifetimes. His lost years remind us that no truth is ever lost. It only waits to be rediscovered by those who dare to look within. The real mystery of the lost years is not where he went, but what he found, and what he awakened within all of us. The same light, the same love, the same divine spark that no distance, no time, and no darkness can ever extinguish. Because the truth, as Elvis once said, is like the sun. You can shut it out for a time, but it isn't going away. Thanks for looking.